Every payday, Marcus thought his paycheck was telling him exactly how much money he had. He never questioned it. His co-worker Owen received the exact same paycheck every 2 weeks, yet somehow treated it like an entirely different message. Marcus believed the number printed on the check represented permission to improve his life a little more each month. Owen looked at the very same number and quietly wondered how much of it actually belonged to his future instead. Neither man argued about money, neither earned more, neither worked harder. Their paychecks were perfectly identical. On payday, Marcus immediately started thinking about what he could finally afford that had been waiting on his wish list. Owen asked himself a different question before spending anything. How much of this paycheck needs to keep working after I'm done? Marcus never noticed the difference because both questions sounded reasonable, and both men seemed perfectly happy. Months passed, and Marcus celebrated every raise by making life a little more comfortable than it had been before. A slightly nicer apartment became normal. A newer car felt deserved. Better restaurants slowly became ordinary. Nothing happened overnight. Each decision felt small enough to ignore, almost impossible to regret in the moment. Owen's life hardly changed on the outside, but every raise quietly increased the amount flowing into investments first. Friends sometimes wondered why Owen still lived so simply when his salary had clearly continued growing. He rarely explained because the answer sounded too ordinary to impress anyone at the dinner table. Years slipped by without either man realizing they had been following two completely different instructions hidden inside identical paychecks. One paycheck had quietly become a license to spend, while the other had quietly become a tool for building freedom. Then one afternoon, Marcus accidentally saw Owen's investment account and froze before saying a single word. The balance wasn't shocking because Owen earned more. It was shocking because he never had. Marcus looked back at every paycheck he had ever received and wondered what message he had completely missed. Before we continue, welcome to Lyon Invests. This channel isn't about getting rich overnight. It's about questioning the financial beliefs that shape how we earn, spend, save, invest, and build wealth. Because what sounds true about money isn't always the full story. If you enjoy exploring the hidden psychology and systems behind financial decisions, consider subscribing. One quick note before we continue. I'm not a financial advisor. I simply enjoy researching financial psychology, behavioral economics, and investing. Everything shared here is for educational purposes to help you think more critically and make more informed financial decisions. Now, let's see what this story is really revealing. Stories like this happen every day, which is exactly why they're so easy to overlook. Maybe you've received hundreds of paychecks without ever asking what they were really trying to tell you. Most people believe a paycheck answers one simple question: how much can I spend? But a paycheck was never designed to answer that question in the first place. It tells you how much you earned for your work, not how much your future can safely consume. The difference between those two ideas seems small, yet it changes financial lives over decades. Behavioral economists call this mental accounting, the habit of assigning money a meaning before spending it. The moment your paycheck arrives, your brain begins creating stories about where every dollar already belongs. That process happens so quickly that it feels like common sense instead of a psychological habit. If your first thought is spending, your decisions naturally flow toward today's rewards. If your first thought is ownership of your future, your decisions begin moving in a different direction. Neither choice feels dramatic on a single payday because the consequences arrive quietly. Human beings naturally value immediate rewards more than future rewards, even when the future reward is much larger. Psychologists call this present bias, one of the strongest forces influencing financial behavior. Your paycheck quietly becomes the fuel for whatever habit already exists inside your mind. That's why two people with identical incomes can experience completely different financial futures. The paycheck didn't create the difference. It simply revealed the decision-making system each person was already following. The real question isn't how much your paycheck says you earned. It's what your mind immediately believes that money is meant to do. Think about the moment your paycheck lands in your account before you spend a single dollar. Without realizing it, your brain starts dividing that money into invisible categories almost instantly. Rent, groceries, entertainment, bills, vacations, upgrades, and countless other plans begin competing for attention. Very few people create a category called future freedom before everything else claims its share. That's why earning more often feels surprisingly temporary instead of permanently life-changing. As income rises, expectations usually rise alongside it, quietly keeping financial pressure alive. Economists call this lifestyle inflation, and it rarely feels like a mistake while it's happening. Each upgrade seems reasonable because it matches your new income rather than exceeding it. The problem isn't buying better things, it's allowing every raise to disappear before it has time to build wealth. Imagine receiving a 5% raise every year for the next decade. If each raise immediately funds a more expensive lifestyle, your financial freedom barely moves. But if part of every raise begins purchasing income-producing assets instead, the story changes completely. Small percentages repeated consistently often outperform dramatic financial decisions made only once. That's because wealth usually grows through repetition, rather than extraordinary moments. Compounding rewards patience far more than excitement. A single investment may seem insignificant today, but decades give it time to become something entirely different. Many people underestimate this because the early stages of compounding feel almost invisible. Growth appears slow at first, then gradually accelerates until the results seem almost unbelievable. The paycheck never announces this possibility because compounding isn't printed anywhere on the stub. Yet hidden inside every paycheck is another opportunity to give your future more than your present takes away. This is where many financial beliefs quietly begin to change once you recognize what your paycheck has been saying all along. A paycheck isn't simply a reward for work, it's a decision waiting to be made. Every dollar asks the same silent question before you answer it with your actions. Will you spend me once, or give me the chance to earn for you again? Most people never hear that question because they stop reading the paycheck after the number at the bottom. But the number is only today's result, not tomorrow's possibility. Your future wealth depends less on the size of your paycheck than on the role you assign it. A larger paycheck can disappear quickly if every dollar is expected to improve today's lifestyle. An average paycheck can slowly create extraordinary freedom when some of it is consistently given a different job. That's why wealth often looks invisible before it ever looks impressive. It grows quietly in statements, investment accounts, retirement funds, and assets that receive little attention from others. By the time people notice the outcome, they're usually looking at years of unnoticed decisions. The interesting part is that most of those decisions never felt important when they were made. Real financial change rarely begins with a dramatic breakthrough. It begins with changing the meaning of the next paycheck that arrives. Instead of asking, "What can this paycheck buy me today?" try asking, "What can this paycheck still be doing 10 years from now?" That single question shifts your attention from consumption toward ownership. And once your attention changes, your financial decisions often begin changing with it. The paycheck never hid the truth from you. It simply waited for you to notice the message beyond the number. So the next time payday arrives, don't just read what your paycheck says. Ask yourself what it quietly expects you to do, because that answer may shape your future far more than the amount itself.